Hey, gang, and welcome to a Fulci version of Apples and Oranges. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what everybody thinks is, if I have anybody on here. If not, I'll be talking about what I think is the best Fulci horror film of all time. And I talked to Steve about this a little bit earlier, and he gave me his thoughts, but I'll wait and see if Steve actually shows up. I don't know how busy at work he's going to be tonight. So he may be able to be on in the chat or he may not. But the great thing about YouTube is that you can always watch these on the replay, even if you don't have time to watch them when they're live. But before I get started talking about my favorite Fulci horror film of all time, I wanted to show everybody something that I got in today that is really cool. This is the Castle Rock Kitchen Cookbook. It's wicked good recipes from the world of Stephen King by Teresa Carl Sanders. And one thing I love about it is it's got a foreword by Stephen King, a very good foreword. Um, and also you get this cool little map. You see Castle Rock and you see Cujo there. But anybody that reads a lot of Stephen King will also notice that on this map, Chester's Mill is on here, Dark Score Lake, Motton, Derry, Bangor, Little Tall Island, Augusta, Bridgeton, Jerusalem's Lot, Portland. I mean, all of these places that have been mentioned at one time or another in Stephen King stories. This is also supposed to be told by Mrs. Garrity, which, again, if you've read a lot, I had unfortunately forgotten about the character of Mrs. Garrity, but whenever I was reading the introduction to this cookbook, uh, Mrs. Garrity was in the first novel Stephen King ever wrote. Not the first one he ever got published, but the first one he ever wrote, called The Long Walk. And Mrs. Garrity is, she's maybe a secondary character, but she's kind of the wraparound. She's the storyteller in this. And The Long Walk, in case you weren't sure what that was about, it takes place in the future where 100 young men volunteer to undergo an annual walk that starts in Maine uh, and proceeds south until just one walker is left standing. If I remember correctly in the story, if you stopped walking for a certain amount of time, I think they would shoot you. I think that was the deal with that. So Mrs. Garrity's son Ray Garrity is has volunteered for the long walk, and she's sharing supposedly some of the recipes that have been passed down to her over the years, but it also goes along with a lot of Stephen King's stories. So once you really get into it, starts with breakfast and gives you, what Miss Garrity feels about the breakfast or about breakfast in general. Then you get the first recipe, which is life sentence oatmeal. And it has a little snippet from Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. I think that this is genius, the way that they created this book. The second one is Pancakes with the Toziers, which you will remember Richie Tozier is from It. So I just went through it a little bit. I didn't get through all the recipes. There's even some recipes for beverages, including a homemade root beer that I really want to try, taken right from the pages of Carrie, where Tommy tells her that he will um, take her to the King Fruit. I think it's, what was it? It was King Fruit Company, or let me look this up so I don't tell you. I may be telling you wrong. So let me look up the root beer one again. Here, give me just a second. I just don't want to tell you wrong, right? Okay. Kelly Fruit. Sorry. Kelly Fruit. Tommy tells Carrie that after the prom is over, he will take her to Kelly Fruit for a burger and a root beer. Okay. So this, it makes about a gallon of root beer, and I love root beer. I know root beer is kind of an acquired taste, but I absolutely love it. I've loved it since it was a kid. So I'm really looking forward to diving into these recipes in this book, The Castle Rock Kitchen. And it's not too expensive. I mean, I got it less than the publisher's price, which is $35. This is a hardback book. Um, but just wanted to show that off. For those of you that like to cook, that may be something that you want to invest in. Um, so, what do we got going on tomorrow night? Tomorrow night will be Fantasy Fulci. And Fantasy Fulci, of course, is about films that we wish Fulci directed. So be sure to tune into that. If you want to join me on here, please let me know and I'll make sure I get the link to you one way or the other so that you can come on here. If anybody pops in here tonight and would like to come in live on here with me, then I would love to have you and you can talk about what you think is the best Fulci horror of all time. It doesn't have to, be exactly the one I picked. But if I don't end up having anybody on here with me, I'll probably talk a little bit about my favorite and then get off here for the night so I don't start, rambling. But I do want to remind everybody that Friday Foolish, I have not got Friday Foolish up yet. Oh, I'm going to sneeze, I think. Well, excuse me. But I don't have Friday Foolish promotion up yet, but I should have it tonight. Um, Me and Candace are planning on doing a Universal Monsters super special Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So stay tuned for that. Got a couple of watch alongs coming up this weekend, both starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Saturday's watch along will be for The Gates of Hell, aka City of the Living Dead. And Sunday's watch along will be for House by the Cemetery. This is to kick off the first week of Fulci Fall. And like I said, both of these are going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. All right. So let's get started with the matter at hand, which is apples and oranges, talking about the best Fulci horror of all time. Now, at first I thought this was going to be a tie, and then one of these edged the other out purely based on nostalgia. I ain't going to lie to you, okay? So the two that I was thinking it was going to be a tie was The Gates of Hell, City of the Living Dead, and The Beyond. And some of you guys and gals that either are watching this now or may watch it later, may say, well, ooh, Dana, those two, I wouldn't pick either one of those. It's the best Fulci of our time. But that's what's so great about apples and oranges. If you've got another favorite, I'd love you to come in the chat or come in here live on the stream with me and discuss it and tell why you think that your pick is the best Fulci horror of all time. Okay, so let's get to mine, okay? The Gates of Hell ended up ultimately edging out the Beyond because of the nostalgia for me for the Gates of Hell. Because, as I said before, the Gates of Hell was the first Lucio Fulci film I ever watched. And again, this is the one that my parents talked about, especially my dad. He kept telling me about this movie that him and my mom saw at the drive-in, and had flying maggots, had a guy getting his head drilled, and all that stuff. And you tell a young horror fan this kind of stuff, and they're thinking this has got to be the greatest horror movie ever made. So, and that's exactly what I thought. So I searched and searched and searched for this movie. Couldn't find it in the video stores around town. So I actually had to go across the river into Indiana, and there was a little mom and pop video store. I can't even remember the name of it now, which is sad. And there I spied a big box of the Gates of Hell. And I was like, oh my gosh, I found the holy grail of horror movies. Okay. So I promptly grabbed that sucker up, took it to the counter, and rented it. And this is also the same place where I ended up discovering I Spit on Your Grave for the first time. And as I've told people, I Spit on Your Grave was the one movie my parents said that I should wait before, I should wait until I'm older to watch. And this was a wise choice on my parents' part. And anybody that has seen I Spit on Your Grave or heard what it's about will understand their thinking. But most everything else I was able to watch, even when I was a little bit younger. So this movie really was, for me, for a very long time, the holy grail of horror movies and the holy grail of gore movies. Because I just feel like Fulci was like, screw it, I'm going to throw everything at the screen or on the screen that I can throw on the screen, and I'm not going to care if it grosses people out. This is what kind of movie I'm putting out. I'm not going to put out this little weak-willed horror film that nobody's going to take notice of, right? And Fulci always, I perceived Fulci as a person that could care less what people thought. He was going to put out a product that he wanted to put out. And, he was not going to worry about consequences or anything like that. Which, in the grand scheme of things, what kind of consequences would be as a result of this film being made? Actually, people might disagree with me here, but I actually feel like The Gates of Hell is a very well made movie. For a horror film, it's very, very well made. To me, it's stylish. Yeah, it's low budget. You can tell that. But it's got great special effects in it. These special effects guys, a lot of them in the United States work very hard too. But man, you give these guys the most sparse materials, and they can put out fantastic effects. So not only do you have maggots flying in through the windows fly open, and the rain of maggots, I guess you would call it a rain of maggots, comes in. And there are actual live worms on the actors and actresses' face. They're on the floor. They're crawling on phones. They're just everywhere. And nothing would be complete. A maggot rainstorm would not be complete without at least one vomiting scene, right? So you get that on top of the maggot rainstorm. Okay. Okay, you have a guy played by Giovanni Lombardo Radice going under the name John Morgan, I guess to make it sound Americanized. Um, he gets his head drilled, and this has nothing to do with the dead coming back to life. Absolutely nothing. A father catches the character of Bob, played by Giovanni, um, sitting in the back seat of a car in the garage with his daughter. And he's already had caught them together before, and he's very, very angry. And basically, it's like, you bastard, I'm going to kill you. This is the second time I've caught you with my daughter. And the daughter was going to smoke some pot with Bob. But the father, he breaks in. Sorry if y'all hear that beeping. I'd been cooking Steve some barbecue chicken. So Steve, if you're watching this, I'm cooking your barbecue chicken. Um, so the father drags him out of the back seat of the car and bumps into this gigantic drill, and it turns it on. I guess he gets the idea that, well, I'll do you in here, dude, and he just keeps pushing Bob's head. It's like, you see Bob's face, you see the drill, you see Bob's face, you see the drill, and it's getting closer and closer and closer until finally the drill goes right through the guy's head. And you have this spectacular, almost overhead shot of the drill going completely in one side of Bob's head and out the other. And you see it actually spinning on both sides, and him with his mouth open, him with blood on his mouth where the father had already punched him in the face. Okay, permit me to step away for 1 second. I've got to turn the oven off real quickly. Be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So what else do we have here? Oh, the coup de grace for me is, and I know I've said this more than once, and people are probably like, oh gosh, Dan, just quit talking about this. But a woman literally does puke up, so bring your bark bags, folks, does puke up her entire intestinal tract. I kid you not. Stomach and intestines and everything. Okay. Now, yeah, you can tell when so much of it comes out that it's a fake head. But that poor woman had to have real animal intestines in her mouth at the beginning. So, all I can say is what a trooper to do that. But she probably would have got screamed at by Fulci if she said, no, no, sir, I don't want to do that. But Fulci has had her in more than one film, and she usually has to go through some pretty gruesome deaths. And I think she was also in House by the Cemetery, and she meets a very gruesome end in that one too. So bless her heart. Um, and you have Mikhail Suave playing her boyfriend, who, after watching his girlfriend puke up her entire intestinal tract, he gets the back of his head and brains ripped out by a zombie. Um, you also have some worms and mud and Lord knows what else smashed into this one girl's face, who they later find dead. And they say that she apparently died of fright. And I believe Fulci makes a cameo in that part as doctor. And I'll never forget the line that the cop gives whenever they look, and it appears that there's a dead cat there, and he says, "That boy's gonna fry." And I'm sorry, but I just laugh because they're talking about Bob. So this girl um, wants to help Bob. I think she's working with a psychiatrist, psychologist, played by, I think it's, oh, is it Carl Mayo? Is that his name? That's what I was thinking his name is. But I could be wrong. Don't hold it against me, folks, if I'm wrong. That way to be prepared, Dana. But but she is working for him, and I think she must be dating him as well. So she says she's got to go see Bob, and she's trying to be a kind soul and be good to Bob. And Bob is terrified, and Father Thomas, who we see at the beginning of the film hanging himself. So Father Thomas is not having a good day at the beginning of this film. The I'll back it up a little bit. At the beginning of this film, there is a seance going on where Catriona MacColl plays a character, Mary. And she evidently is like a medium, psychic. Um, and while they're having this seance, she sees Father Thomas walking in a cemetery. And yeah, Father Thomas doesn't look like he's having a good day at all. And looks like he hasn't had sleep in about 6 months. Got dark circles under his eyes and all that business. So she watches as Father Thomas hangs himself. And when Father Thomas hangs himself, that opens the gates of hell. And this small town, small village, whatever you want to call it, is set upon by the living dead after this. Um, and Christopher George is in this as well. And he plays a reporter, and he gets hooked up with Mary, Catriona MacColl's character, after Mary appears to die and is partially buried, wakes up alive in the casket. And if Christopher George hadn't been there, she, I guess, would have suffocated and died. So when she's, you know, retrieved from the casket and all that, she tells Christopher George, I saw this priest hang himself, and I know that when he hanged himself, it opened the gates of hell. And in so many days, the dead are basically going to take over this small village. So, and this is all 7 of the gates of hell. This isn't just one of them. So this is part of a, like, I guess you would call it a Living Dead trilogy that Fulci had, which also includes House by the Cemetery and The Beyond. All of these are all great films. So Christopher George and Catriona MacColl travel to this small little town, and they're, trying to stop what's happening or what's already started to happen that's only going to get worse in 3 days on All Saints Day. And so what they have to do is they have to find Father Thomas's grave, and they have to destroy his body. Okay. So so we have all this gruesome stuff happening, and the reason why the girl pukes up her entire intestinal tract is because even after Father Thomas hanged himself and he's dead and he's buried in the family crypt, he still shows up, and either he became an evil priest after he died, or there was something wrong with him before. Maybe he was dabbling in something he shouldn't have been. But he appears before mainly women. And first they start to bleed from their eyes, and then eventually, like the one unfortunate girl, will puke up their entire intestinal tract. And he smiles a little bit, this evil little thin smile. So Christopher George, Catriona McCall, they get hooked up with a couple of other characters in the film. One is the psychologist or the psychiatrist, and his friend and a patient. And they go into Father Thomas's crypt, or the family crypt, I should say. And Janet Agron's character, who is the friend and patient of Carlo Mayo's character, um, she gets killed. She gets killed early on, actually, before they go in the crypt. And she shows up in the crypt and dispatches Christopher George's character by, the same way that Mikhail Suave's character died, by pulling the back of his skull out and pulling his brain out. There's also a little boy who was the brother of the girl who got frightened to death by Father Thomas. And she comes back and kills his parents. And so he hangs out with Carlo Mayo's character, Janet Agron's character, and Christopher George and Catriona McCall for a while. But when they actually go into the crypt, they leave him with the cops. And so Father Thomas is destroyed. They stab him with this big old, I guess, spike or whatever you want to call it, wooden spike. And Father Thomas twirls around and catches on fire, basically explodes. And supposedly that gets rid of all the other living dead people, right? So only Catriona McCall and Carlo Mayo's character are left. You see them crawling out of the crypt. You see the cops there with the boy. The boy is running towards them saying, Mary, Gary, or maybe it was Jerry, something like that. And the word is that the film got damaged at the end. But you have this cool little effect. And I guess Fulci just said, screw it, we're going to, so what if the film got damaged at the end? But people have had a lot of theories over the years, about what this supposedly meant. I think Fulci just, you could make up theories or make up a story to go along with it. I have myself. But you see Catriona McCall, she's laughing at first. Carla Mayo's laughing at first. And then she starts going, like that, like she's in pain. Now, we saw in an earlier scene that there was blood coming out of her eyes because Father Thomas's, whatever you want to call it, his spirit or whatever, appeared before her. But they, got her out of his sight line before she actually puked up her entire intestinal tract like the girl from earlier. And so you might think, well, is she having side effects of seeing Father Thomas from earlier when her eyes started to bleed and all that? And you see the boy running towards them, and you see her just like that. And you see the cops. I always thought maybe there was something wrong with the cops, or there was something wrong with the boy. Maybe, the cops had turned into the living dead. Maybe something was happening with the boy. But you hear Catriona McCall scream, and then the film just kind of breaks apart, and I'm guessing that's where the damage was. So it's kind of fun to make up an ending to this, or what may have happened after she screamed, or that's kind of fun. But I just think, really, out of necessity, Fulci just said, let them figure it out, let the audience figure it out on their own. I'm so so what if there's damage? I'm going to put the film out anyway. And in every print, nobody's tried to restore that, and there may not be any restoration that could be done on it, right? So I will say I have a heck of a good time every time I watch this. Yeah, the movie's dark. Yeah, it's gloomy, but it is also atmospheric. The special effects are great. The music is great. Like I said, the movie is very well made, in my opinion. Um, Creepy in parts. I mean, it covers all of those horror bases, definitely. Um, so I know I haven't been on here but just a little over 30 minutes total. But like I said, I don't want to get on here and just ramble, just to be on here for an hour. So, um, being as this is what I think is the best Fulci horror of all time, you guys and gals can probably guess what rating I'm going to give to this. And I'm going to give this 5 deadites out of 5. I think it's an excellent little horror movie, well worth a watch. Now, again, am I telling you that you should go out and spend your hard earned money on it? No, sir, no, ma'am. I am not asking you to do that. I am asking you to, if you don't own it, to find a for free copy. Try YouTube, try Tubi, ask a friend or family member that likes horror movies if they've got it, right? And then if you watch it and decide that you really like it, and um, you could definitely see yourself, watching this several more times. Okay. Then by all means, there have been several different versions of this put out. This was put out by Scorpion Releasing. This is a Blu-ray. I get people might think this is really silly, but the main reason I got this one is because it's under the Gates of Hell title. All right. And I wanted to have it under the title that I originally watched it under. Now, that's not the Italian title. The Italian title is City of the Living Dead. Okay. And I have it under that title as well. And so, yeah, that's about it from me. I did see that we had 3 or so people in here most of the time, and for that I thank you guys and gals, whoever may have been watching. I want to thank everybody that will watch this on the replay as well. It's okay that nobody chatted. I usually like to have a little more participation in these apples and oranges, but people get busy, or people may not feel comfortable chatting and bringing up movies that they like or don't like or whatever. So, oh goodness, that is probably my clue to get off here. But I want to thank everybody for the continued support of my channel, for the continued support of the Deadites on Deck shop at deaditesondeck.com. And no, this is not a shirt from my shop. This shirt is from Terror Threads, and it's a cool little shirt. I really like it as well. So stay tuned tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Fantasy Fulci, we're going to be talking about movies we wish Fulci had directed. Could be new movies, could be old movies, could not even be horror movies. Maybe y'all wanted to see what your favorite comedy would have been, would have turned out in the hands of Lucio Fulci, because I think early on he did some comedies. And Friday, be sure to tune in at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Me and Candace are going to be doing a Universal Monsters super special on Friday Foolish. And then I've got a couple of watch alongs coming up this weekend. Of course, like I said earlier, Saturday will be The Gates of Hell, aka City of the Living Dead, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Sunday's watch along will be The House by the Cemetery, which will also start at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's all from me tonight, folks. If you missed this, you can watch it on the replay. And, leave some likes, comments, even some suggestions that you might, or things that you might want to see me cover. And remember that the whole month of October will be Fulci Fall, so there's even more Fulci programming coming up. And I guess that's it from me. And I'm off like a dirty shirt. This is not a dirty shirt, but I'm off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday, folks. It's hump day. Got 2 more days in the week. And then hopefully, I wish I could say all of us will be off for the weekend, but I know, unfortunately, some people have to work the weekends. So I hope the majority of you are off this weekend. Let's make it special, folks. And I'm out of here for now, but I'll see everybody next time.